At this exact microsecond, somewhere in the lightless pressure cooker of the North Atlantic, 5,000 human souls are trapped inside a $13.3 billion hyperweapon. This is the USS Gerald R. Ford CVN-78. It is a 100,000-ton slabs of nuclear-powered vengeance, a floating sovereign territory that generates enough electricity to power a mid-sized city. Driven by two A-1B nuclear reactors, it moves through the abyss like a ghost that never needs to breathe, carrying 75 F-35C Lightning, two stealth jets capable of erasing a zip code from the map in minutes. But forget the propaganda of the recruitment posters. Beneath the flight deck, where electromagnetic catapults slam 30-ton aircraft from 0 to 160 miles per hour in 2 seconds, lies a world of claustrophobic violence. While the world gapes at the greatest warship ever built, 5,000 sailors are fighting a savage, 24-hour guerrilla war against gravity, filth, and the limits of the human psyche. They are consuming 17,300 meals a day in a windowless maze, sleeping in metal racks stacked 3 high like cordwood, and sharing 4 showers with 100 sweating strangers. This is the ultimate cruel paradox of 21st century warfare. We have engineered a machine that can track a bird's heartbeat from 300 miles away, yet we cannot give the sailor operating the radar more than 20 inches of vertical space to dream in. The USS Gerald R. Ford is an apex predator of the seas, but for the 19-year-old aviation boatswain's mate, it is a $13 billion steel coffin where the air smells of JP-5 jet fuel, burnt hydraulic fluid, and the recycled sweat of 4,999 other people. But here's the truth they don't want you to see. Behind the sleek lines of maritime dominance is a logistical nightmare, so intense it defies civilian comprehension. How do you keep a city of 5,000 from cannibalizing itself when it hasn't touched solid earth in 180 days? How do you prevent a total system collapse when your crew is working 16-hour shifts in a deafening 135-degree engine room, only to relax in a bunk that vibrates with every arrested landing of a fighter jet overhead? How do you maintain a strategic asset when a single clogged pipe in a vacuum-powered toilet can trigger a $400,000 emergency acid flush? This is not a cruise. It is a pressurized experiment in human degradation and absolute discipline. Every heartbeat on this ship is a calculated military maneuver involving 1,600 pounds of raw chicken, 20,000 cups of adrenaline-spiking coffee, and millions of pounds of high explosives. A single bacterial outbreak in the Galley could theoretically disarm a U.S. strike group more effectively than an enemy torpedo. One lapse in the laundry room, one sailor collapsing from heat exhaustion could break the chain of maintenance that keeps those billion-dollar jets in the air. We are obsessed with the hardware, the missiles, the stealth coding, the nuclear core, but the software is made of bone and blood. It is the grit in the eyes of a technician who hasn't seen the sun in 3 weeks. It is the $65,000 daily grocery bill that keeps the meat inside the machine moving. It is the terrifying realization that the most advanced warship in human history is only as lethal as the person trying to stay sane in a world of clanging steel and zero privacy. Let's descend past the radar arrays. Let's ignore the gold braid and the medals. We are going into the belly of the beast to see the numbers that actually dictate the fate of nations, not the range of the guns, but the cost of the humanity required to fire them. Welcome to the invisible war of the everyday. The flight deck is a scream of titanium and fire, but 50 feet below the waterline, a different kind of war is being fought. It is the war of the Calorie on the USS Gerald R. Ford. The culinary specialists, CS, are not mere cooks. They are tactical metabolic logisticians operating in a high-heat, high-stakes slaughterhouse. To fuel 5,000 sailors, this floating factory must incinerate reality. 17,300 meals every 24 hours. That is 720 plates every hour. 12 meals every single minute, non-stop, till the end of the world. The numbers don't just talk, they shriek. Every sunrise, the crew liquidates 1,600 pounds of raw chicken. They drain 160 gallons of milk. They shred 350 pounds of lettuce and drown their collective exhaustion in 20,000 cups of industrial sludge coffee. This isn't dining.
its mass production fueling under extreme biological duress. The Galley is a humid hellscape where temperatures routinely spike to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Steam erupts from 80-gallon industrial kettles.
The air is a thick, choking soup of searing animal fat, floor bleach, and the metallic tang of recycled oxygen. These CS units are forged at the Navy's elite Culinary Forge in Fort Lee, Virginia. They aren't flipping burgers for a paycheck, they are managing a $65,000 a day grocery burn. That is nearly $2 million a month just to keep the human engines from seizing up. If the food stops, the carrier dies. Morale is the only thing thicker than the armored hull. And on a 180-day deployment, a hot tray of mid-rats is the only tether left to a sanity that is rapidly fraying. But the delivery of this fuel is a violent mid-ocean miracle. Every 7 to 10 days, the Ford engaged in a UNREP underway replenishment. A supply ship pulls alongside at a thundering 15 knots. They are separated by only 100 feet of churning, lethal Atlantic foam. Steel cables snap taut across the abyss. 700,000 pounds of frozen pallets zip through the air while two 100,000-ton Titans play a high-speed game of Don't Collide. One rogue wave, one steering glitch, and the billions of dollars of hardware become a billion-dollar collision. It is a high-wire act performed in a hurricane. Once the fuel is inboard, the hierarchy of the mess dictates the soul. In the enlisted galley, it is a blur of digital camo and plastic trays. It is fast. It is brutal. You have precisely 20 minutes to shovel 2,850 calories into your gullet before the next wave of hollow-eyed sailors shoves you back into the labyrinth. The menu rotates every 21 days, a psychological defense mechanism to prevent food amnesia. A condition where you forget what color the sky is because everything tastes like the same gray, salty slab of mystery protein. Then, there are the heads on the Ford. Even the bathroom is a tactical failure. You don't take a shower. You survive a Navy shower. On 30 seconds, get wet, off. Soak every shivering inch of your body in the dark. Cramped silence of a metal coffin, on. 60 seconds. Rinse the grime of a 16-hour shift. Done. Total water used 3 gallons. A civilian uses 60. On a nuclear carrier, fresh water is more precious than blood. The desalination plants are screaming, but 5,000 bodies are a bottomless pit of thirst. The toilets on the Gerald R. Ford were marketed as the future, gender neutral, vacuum powered, high tech. In reality, they are a $13 billion embarrassment. The plumbing system, a complex web of undersized pipes, is prone to catastrophic, ship-wide cardiac arrest. When a sailor flushes a stray rag or a handful of industrial paper towels, the vacuum dies. The head becomes a biohazard. 2 major clogs every single day. To fix a Tier 1 blockage, the Navy must perform an acid flush, a chemical scorched earth policy that costs the taxpayer $400,000 per treatment.
That is the price of a suburban mansion, dissolved in acid, just to make the toilets flush. Imagine being a female sailor on a 12-hour watch. The nearest working head is 4 decks down and 2 football fields away. You hold it. You suffer. You develop kidney infections while standing watch over a nuclear reactor. This is the high-tech reality. We can land a drone on a pitching deck in a blacked-out storm, but we cannot manage the basic biological waste of the warriors we put there. This is the friction. This is the hidden, filthy tax of being a global superpower. On the USS Gerald R. Ford, the sun is a dead memory. For the 5,000 souls entombed within this nuclear labyrinth, time is stripped of its celestial meaning. There is no dawn. There is no dusk. There is only the hum, the relentless low-frequency throb of the A-1B reactors vibrating through the soles of your boots, and the flickering, sterile glare of fluorescent tubes that never dim.
Some technicians, the ghosts of the reactor rooms, go 25 days without a single photon of natural light hitting their retinas. Their skin turns the color of recycled parchment. Their eyes adjust to a world of shadows and steel. This is the no-sun rot, a slow-motion sensory starvation that erodes the psyche 1 windowless hour at a time. When the 16-hour meat grinder of a shift finally ends, there is no going home. There is only the rack. You don't sleep in a bed on a carrier. You are filed away in a horizontal locker. These are the steel coffins. Imagine a space 77 inches long and 27 inches wide, stacked 3 high like cordwood in a morgue. You have exactly 20 inches of vertical clearance. If you wake up from a night terror and sit up too fast, you crack your skull on the iron belly of the sailor above you. The mattress is a 3-inch slab of fire retardant foam that reeks of industrial detergent and the sweat of the sailor who occupied it before you.
This is not rest. It is a temporary suspension of consciousness in a zone of high-intensity violence. You are sleeping directly beneath the catapults. Every 3 minutes, a 30-ton F/A 18E Super Hornet is slammed into the sky or ripped out of it by the arresting wires. The entire berthing area screams. The bulkheads shudder with the force of a controlled earthquake. Dust from 1980 pulverized asbestos and human skin shakes loose from the ventilation grates and settles in your lungs. You learn to sleep through the thunder of the jets, but your nervous system never truly disarms. You're a human component in a machine that never sleeps, vibrating in a metal slot smaller than a Victorian grave. But the most visceral, invisible hell is found in the laundry guts. Deep below the waterline, in a lightless compartment that would make a marathon runner collapse. The Ford processes 150,000 pounds of salt-crusted, jet-fuel-soaked filth every week. This is the steam room.
The temperature isn't just uncomfortable, it is a biological assault. 135 degrees Fahrenheit is the baseline. The humidity is a suffocating 100%. Sailors here work in 60-minute heat stress intervals because any longer means a one-way trip to the infirmary with stage 2 heat stroke. They operate 9 industrial-grade washers and 12 massive steam presses that hiss like nesting vipers. Every uniform, every grease-stained coverall, every pair of salt-stiffened socks must be stenciled and tracked. If the laundry fails, the ship becomes a petri dish. In these cramped quarters, deck rot and viral outbreaks can decapitate a 40-person unit in 48 hours. The laundry team is the ship's primary immune system, scrubbing away the biological decay of 5,000 bodies to prevent a medical catastrophe that could scrub a $13 billion mission. Then there is the silence or the lack of it.
A carrier is a cacophony of hydraulic screams, high-pressure steam whistling through the veins of the ship, and the rhythmic, terrifying thud of the North Atlantic trying to crush the hull. This constant acoustic bombardment creates a state of permanent hyper-vigilance. You are always on, even in your steel coffin. Your brain is listening for the change in the reactor's pitch, the snap of a cable, or the general quarters klaxon. That means your world is about to end. This is the anonymous operating system of American global reach. It isn't just the nuclear core providing the thrust. It's the 19-year-old kid in the laundry room who hasn't felt a breeze on his face in 6 weeks. It's the mechanic sleeping in a vibrating tube who can diagnose a hydraulic failure by the smell of the air alone. They are the human grease in the gears of a machine that refuses to acknowledge they exist. We marvel at the sortie rates and the electromagnetic catapults. But the real miracle is that 5,000 people haven't surrendered to the madness. They endure the heat, the clogs, the darkness, and the deafening thunder because they have been forged into a singular, collective organism. The machine is made of steel, but its soul is the desperate, disciplined endurance of the men and women who live in its shadows. Why endure the 135-degree industrial hell, the steel coffins, the $400,000 clogs, and the sensory starvation of the lower decks to the civilian eye? The USS Gerald R. Ford is a $13.3 billion monument to excess. To the adversary, it is a radioactive nightmare that never sleeps. But to the global heartbeat, this ship is the only thing standing between civilization and absolute, suffocating terminal collapse. This is the strategic why. We live in a world governed by the blue economy,
90% of everything you touch, the phone in your hand, the fuel in your engine, the medicine keeping your family alive, traveled across a predatory ocean to reach you. Those oceans are not free. They are lawless voids filled with territorial sharks, state-sponsored pirates, and choke points that could strangulate a nation's GDP in 48 hours. The USS Gerald R. Ford isn't just a warship. It is a $13.3 billion biological and nuclear insurance policy for the modern world. When this strike group carves its way through the South China Sea or the Persian Gulf, the sortie rate isn't a line on a spreadsheet. It is a psychological guillotine. The ability to catapult an F-35C into the sky every 45 seconds, 24 hours a day, creates a bubble of deterrence that ripples across continents. It screams to the world. The lanes are open, the trade flows, the Pax Americana holds. But that bubble isn't inflated by nuclear steam alone. It is held up by the bleeding cuticles of the 19-year-old in the laundry room and the sleep-deprived mechanic vibrating in a steel coffin. This is the true, terrifying anatomy of global power. It is not found in the gleaming CGI of defense contractors or the sterile, air-conditioned halls of the Pentagon. It is found in the grit. It is found in the collective, silent sacrifice of 5,000 souls who have traded their sunlight, their identity, and their sanity for a mission they may never see. The Gerald R. Ford is a masterpiece of titanium and silicons, but without the human hardware, it is just 100,000 tons of drifting, radioactive scrap. We romanticize the silent service of the deep, but the loud service of the carrier is a different kind of isolation. These sailors are the invisible janitors of the global order. They live in a pressurized social experiment where the only law is the watch and the only religion is the mission. They accept the 3-gallon Navy shower, the gray slabs of mid-rats, and the bone-shaking thunder of the arresting wires because they understand the ultimate. Uncomfortable truth. Someone has to live in the dark so the rest of the world can live in the light. As you sit in your living room, breathing air that hasn't been recycled 1,000 times, remember the Ford. Remember the sailor who hasn't seen a blade of grass in 6 months. Remember the culinary specialist weeping from heat exhaustion over an 80-gallon kettle at 0300 to feed the ghosts of the flight deck. This is the hidden currency of your security. It is a debt paid in sweat, chronic sleep deprivation, and the quiet, crushing endurance of the steel coffin, the USS Gerald R. Ford represents the apex of human ambition, a city that flies, a fortress that swims, a sun that never sets. But its real lethality isn't the A-1B reactor. It is the terrifying discipline of the 5,000. It is the miracle of human synchronization.
It is the fact that in a world of entropy and chaos, 5,000 people can be compressed into a windowless iron box and operate the most complex machine ever built without the system tearing itself apart. So, we ask you the final lethal question. Could you survive the box? Could you trade your name for a stencil on a uniform and a number on a rack? Could you live in a world where your only privacy is 20 inches of overhead steel? Knowing your suffering is the only thing keeping the gears of the world turning. If this descent into the belly of the beast gave you a new perspective on the savage cost of freedom, smash that like button. Subscribe to join our ranks as we dissect the world's most powerful systems. We do this for the sailors, the technicians, and the anonymous operators who stand watch in the heart of the storm. The watch is yours. Will you stand it?